Good evening, and thank you for tuning in to CRNN. I'm Ava Smith, and this is our weekly Friday news update. In a continuation of our closing story from last week's broadcast, the lunch counter sit-ins have gained traction. Not only was there last week's 1958 Dockham drugstore sit-in, there have been several student-led demonstrations at lunch counters across the country this week. Yesterday, in 1960, students in Greensboro, North Carolina, started what appears to be an ongoing sit-in at a local Woolworths. Unfortunately, no other information on this protest is available at this time. Now, a brief message from our sponsors.
What is the mystery of Bus 509? Why are these three people on it? A businessman, a middle-aged woman, and the man who keeps his eyes closed. Mystery? There's really no mystery. Listen.
On a 200-mile trip like this, the bus gives me a chance to work. No car to park either.
I'm visiting my children. It's so safe and comfortable to go by Greyhound.
I'm a lazy kind of guy. Like to just sit back, relax, and grab a nap.
There's no mystery about why people go Greyhound. Remember,
relaxing while we're riding in a Greyhound bus. We're seeing all the scenery and Comfort Plus. It's such a comfort to take the bus and leave the driving to us in a Greyhound bus. Lucky us in a Greyhound bus.
Welcome back. During tonight's 1960 through 1963 broadcast, we will again take a look at the continuing civil unrest in the South. Civil rights activists who have been dubbed the Freedom Riders left Washington, D.C. early Thursday, May 4th, 1961. The group plans to ride public buses around the country, namely the southern states, to protest transportation companies and local businesses who refuse to comply with the court order to integrate. The Freedom Riders have already faced violent opposition from hate groups such as the KKK. There have been several assaults on riders, and on Mother's Day afternoon, a bus destined for Anniston, Alabama was firebombed minutes before it reached its destination. Thankfully, no one was seriously injured. We go to Alabama for more on this story.
A cooling off period is needed in the Deep South, according to Attorney General Robert Francis Kennedy. His statement followed an announcement from the Freedom Riding headquarters that more bus-borne crusaders of the type that met violence in Montgomery, Alabama, would start moving almost daily through that region. It would be wise, cautioned the Attorney General, for those traveling through these states to delay their trips until the present state of confusion and danger is past and an atmosphere of reason and normalcy has been restored. Robert Kennedy warned of the increasing possibility that innocent persons may be injured. There are curiosity seekers, publicity seekers, and others who are seeking to serve their own causes, as well as many persons who are traveling because they must use the interstate carriers to reach their destination. In an earlier statement, the Attorney General had linked his appeal for restraint to the upcoming international trip of President Kennedy. President Kennedy, who must soon meet de Gaulle of France, Khrushchev of Soviet Russia, Prime Minister Macmillan, and Queen Elizabeth II of Britain, and he must meet them on an unembarrassed footing. Meanwhile, in Jackson, Mississippi, 12 of the Freedom Riders came to town today and got off their bus. For the rest of the story, here is John Jay of Mutual Station WJQS, Jackson, Mississippi.
The first of what apparently will be an all-out effort to test the segregation barriers of Mississippi took place this afternoon. A Trailways bus with 12 self-styled Freedom Riders arrived in this capital city of Mississippi, hardcore of segregation. Promptly upon arrival at the bus station, all 12 riders were hustled off to jail, charged with inciting a riot, refusal to obey an officer, and disorderly conduct. The charges came moments after they stepped from their bus. 8 Negroes were arrested for entering a white men's room. After reading a sign, the colored area was closed. The other arrested in front of the bus station. An estimated crowd of 200 were lined up behind a cordon of police for 4 blocks. Most were people who worked in the immediate area. There were no incidents in direct contrast to the bloody rioting which occurred when the group pulled into Montgomery last week. The Freedom Riders were accompanied on the bus by 7 National Guardsmen with fixed bayonets and 17 newsmen. The Guardsmen were commanded by a full colonel.
In addition to arsons and assaults, the 3 Freedom Riders who went missing at the beginning of this week have been found dead. Authorities have declared their deaths a homicide, but are not releasing any further information now. The authorities in D.C. had their work cut out for them in 1963 when hundreds of thousands of activists and protesters showed up for a historic march on Washington. Participants Americans showed up en masse to protest racial inequality. Among those in attendance were Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., who has recently become the face of nonviolent protest in the growing fight for equal rights. He gave what will likely become a landmark speech to thousands of people in front of the Washington Monument. For more on this story, we go to Washington, D.C.
I am happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. Dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
Well, I'm sure that this 1963 march will be one for the history books, as will Dr. King's rousing speech. Next week in 1964, the movement continues as the controversial up-and-coming activist Malcolm X holds a rally about self-defense in the black community. That's all we have for tonight. I'm Ava Smith, and from all of us at CRNN, we thank you for tuning in. Good night, keep up the good fight, and we will see you next week with more from the front lines of the civil rights movement.